I just announced the second show, so hopefully people will
What's
show
today's
up.
date, Joe?
You want me to start with that again? Well, I will lead us in by saying, as I just mentioned on the previous show, we are all freshly back from, well, I'm back from summer vacation. Sam's almost on his summer vacation, and Jerry is
Oh, here we
flipping
go
through his
again.
virtual backgrounds. So I wanted to talk about things I missed on summer vacation, and I wanted to also talk about something I bought for my summer vacation that's tech related. So I'll start with that. Have you guys played with any portable wireless CarPlay devices, like an add-on for your car? Sam, you have a Tesla, so you don't have CarPlay built in. Have you thought about adding CarPlay as an aftermarket thing?
No, but I have an older car. I did add CarPlay, but it wasn't wireless, so I have to
Okay.
connect using it.
Yes.
What do you
Okay.
got for us, Joe? What's the
Yeah.
new
So
hotness?
it's and Jerry, what about you? You have a Honda, I believe. I don't know if they support CarPlay.
They do.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been using CarPlay for like 4 years, and I do
Nice.
have to. It's not wireless. I have to connect as well.
Okay. Yeah. So the wireless is a relatively new feature as of a couple of years ago, I believe. And my van from almost 10 years ago certainly doesn't support CarPlay. And so I thought about this. I researched it. I hemmed and hawed. Eventually, I decided before this big road trip, I would get this CarPlay device, mainly for maps. That's kind of the major advantage for CarPlay in my book. It's nice that messages are supported. It's nice that you can control your audio and things like that. Also, third-party apps. I was actually surprised that like Ring Central has an app, and I can in theory make calls using Ring Central right from CarPlay. For me, where it's positioned in the car, since it's not built in and intended for this purpose, it's kind of a little bit behind where my phone is mounted, and it's not exactly in reach. It's not super easy for me to navigate it during a trip, but it's really helpful to have a dedicated screen that has the map, for mapping myself to my destination. So I figured it's worth it at least for that purpose. So I did a little bit of research. A little ways back, it seemed like everybody was, all the YouTube influencers were answering the question like, which wireless CarPlay thing is best, and obviously that's because they're getting a kickback from the manufacturer. So that was I discounted the recommendations,
Hmm.
accordingly. Like I didn't think they were, all that genuine. So I was a little skeptical. But I did the research again recently and thought, yeah, it's worth it for a couple $100 to add CarPlay for this trip to have a little bit more safety and again the convenience of a dedicated screen for mapping. And so I went with the CarPu Ride. It's like I
Hmm.
don't know, CarPu Ride, CarPuride W903. So it's like I think it's a 9-inch like high resolution screen. It's 4K and it's a widescreen screen.
Oh, I see
It
it.
also supports Android Auto, and it advertises that you can use it as a screen to watch movies on, which is really janky the way they did that. It's basically an Android like device that if your phone connects to it automatically when you get in the vehicle, it just goes to CarPlay. So that's kind of transparent, but behind the scenes you do see like Android starting up, and in order to do the like I can watch YouTube that's coming from my phone on this screen. I wouldn't do that driving, but like in theory you can do that. Well, it's pretty janky again. It's like you have to like disconnect from CarPlay and then activate what do you call it, AirPlay to this device that's like a Android device that's running a thing
Right.
that's
So you're
supposed to receive
casting.
video. Yes,
Yeah, you're
exactly.
casting to the screen
And like
wirelessly from
you
your
have to
phone.
correct, but it's actually not AirPlay. It's like screen mirroring is what it's actually
Hmm.
doing. So you have to
Hmm.
turn your phone if you want to like see it widescreen on the thing. So it's a little that stuff's not useful at all. And I wasn't buying it for that purpose, but I did play with it. But I thought for maps, if you can get it mounted in a good enough place, they give you like 3 or 4 different types of mounting options with it. It was a value to me. So at first I thought, man, this thing, I'm not sure it's really worth it. It's pretty janky, that kind of thing.
What
But the
was the
way I
VIG?
two, let's see, 239.99.
Okay,
Yeah,
not too bad.
not terrible,
Hmm.
And so again, I decided to keep it. I also thought with Amazon, it's easy enough to just like buy it, install it, test it, maybe take a trip with it and then return it if I really didn't think the value was there. But I ended up keeping it. And so, yeah, I figured, just to throw it out there in case anybody was considering the same thing. It's definitely useful for maps. The rest is like marginally useful, maybe depending on how it's mounted in your vehicle. But yeah, that was part of my
Interesting.
trip this time.
And how was the sound if you were playing music
Terrible.
from your phone?
Absolutely terrible. Yeah. In fact, like it makes that part a lot more annoying because your phone is like, oh, CarPlay, cool. I'll just like send everything through CarPlay, and I'm like, no, don't do that. You just go to the little output thing and you select your Bluetooth to your car directly. This thing has an audio jack that goes from the audio output of the CarPlay into my car has an audio input, so I just plugged it in. Even that was very poor quality compared to just using Bluetooth directly. So I would just switch my podcast output to, my car Bluetooth. Every once in a while on a call, it would in the middle, I'd select AirPods and I'm talking on the phone with the AirPods because it's better quality than even the car's built-in mic and speaker and all. But it would occasionally just switch back to either my car's Bluetooth or the CarPlay Ride, CarPlay output. So I'd be talking and then I'd hear some static and then it would switch and I'd have to switch it back in the middle of a call. So certain things got more annoying. But again, for the maps, I think it was mostly worth it. I don't do a lot of like work from the road as I'm driving, obviously, like even a lot of phone calls. So that wasn't a big issue.
Those aftermarkets sometimes can be really janky. Like the one that I put in, it went into the dash and I had someone install it. So it looks nice and everything, but any sort of sun glare whatsoever, and I can't see anything on the screen.
Right.
So when I have my Apple Maps up or something like that, I'm just like, I don't know where I'm going. It's just like there's like any bit of sun, I'm just lost.
See, this one was actually designed for that. I don't know if it's a matte screen or they advertise it as like having good visibility. And that was my other question was like, is this really going to be? And it is. And you can adjust the brightness right on screen. So at night you just bring it down or you set it to auto. But the screen on this, to your point, is actually not bad compared to, some of the screens I've seen. But
yeah, I mean, at least those Amazon return policies are sweet though. So you could do whatever you want and just send it right back in.
Yank it right out of your dash there.
Yeah.
Well, mine is screwed. I'm screwed with that one.
Right.
But it's funny though, like every once in a while, do you ever get the Amazon return that says like, no need to send the product back? You're all good.
Yeah.
I love those. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. And it really does. I mean, it works because I think the incentive is like, they don't want you to hesitate to click buy, and I know I'm buying more than I otherwise would for that reason. Cause I know I can return it in theory, and it works.
I was going to say something like adult diapers you end up keeping, but I won't say that.
Yeah, don't say that.
CarPlay out of the box, it works pretty reliably in the Honda, and my Honda is like 2000, I want to say 19. So it's not the newest iteration of whatever they have as the head unit in the dash for Hondas. And the sound quality is fine. It's not CD quality. And there, I've tried to, in my efforts to maybe improve the sound output on, through my iPhone, is to try to do an aux in. And my car is new enough where they decided that you don't need an aux in. All you need is CarPlay. Okay. So I just have to deal with the audio from the CarPlay. But the thing about it is it hasn't really changed all that much over the years. There really hasn't been that. And I don't know how much you can actually do with it. To have that universal compatibility across many different car models. Yeah. So maybe Apple's hands are limited, but I've always looked for like, CarPlay's better now. We've seen in some of these keynotes, but it really is the same. The only thing that I have seen, which is a nicer improvement, is that when you ask for directions or some of the interaction with Siri, it'll actually show you maps with your preferred map installation. So instead of defaulting back to Apple Maps, it will go to Waze, which is kind of a new thing. But I'm quite happy with it. I mean, it could always be better, but for what it does, I mean, I religiously plug it in every time I'm in my car.
Nice. The one thing that made this more, I guess, less janky for me was that my car does have a USB port, and I'm not even sure what it's. I think it maybe is designed for like the days of the iPod or something. You
Mm-hmm.
plug in a device like that, and it gets it only that USB port receives power only when the vehicle is started, as you'd hope. It doesn't just sit there like drawing power when the vehicle is
Mm-hmm.
not running, which has the effect of like the CarPlay screen turns on automatically when I like actually unlock the doors of the car, because that's how my vehicle is designed, is that it like powers the port as soon as you unlock the doors from the key fob, even before you start the engine. So that thing's starting up as I'm approaching the vehicle essentially, and then that is ready for it to connect to my phone. So it's all pretty seamless where that's concerned. And again, the aux port in theory would have been a nice benefit, but it powers by USB-C, so I just have a USB-A to USB-C cable, and that works fine. I wasn't
Yep.
sure if it was going to power, provide enough power, but it does. So
Yeah,
that part's
that's
all
what
pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm using in the Honda to drive the AirPlay. Um,
Nice.
and so do you feel, Sam, so you had work done on your car, you have a Tesla, right? And that's the one that you put the head unit in?
No. It wasn't, we have an older car that didn't have any sort of modern technology in it at all. So,
And Tesla doesn't make an accommodation because Elon doesn't like Apple Tim, right?
yeah, but
Tim Apple.
Tim Apple.
Yeah.
No, but it works fine. I mean, like I connect my phone and I just play music through it. And then Tesla has its own mapping system. So it's totally like, it's not really an inconvenience, so to speak. And
Right.
Messages does have a connection, so I can play messages through the car if someone sends me something and I can press the steering wheel and reply.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice convenience. And you have Spotify, I guess, in the head unit on the Tesla. So if you had a Spotify subscription, you could, play your playlist from that.
Yeah, but I'm too cheap to get Spotify subscription.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, but I'm, I think that I was disappointed at first, to be honest, but it didn't really become a matter of a problem. Where I am disappointed is my older car, and I bought that hunk of junk CarPlay, but that'll be hopefully going away at some point.
So this is interesting. Other than buying, let's say, some sort of a unique vehicle like an EV, like the Tesla, where you're already going into it knowing that you can't use CarPlay, is that going to dictate a buying decision in the future for either one of you guys? Because it would for me. I would definitely be looking for, CarPlay functionality going forward.
Yeah. No, if it didn't have any kind of modern, like the Tesla's a perfect alternative to CarPlay for me. But other than that, I would definitely look for CarPlay to be in the vehicle for me to buy it.
Same. I mean, if the vehicle had its own benefits, like Sam's describing, especially having some kind of system that meets my basic needs, I think that would make up for it. But I'd want CarPlay. It's just it's too limiting of a factor if I said it has to have CarPlay. I feel like,
yeah. But I'm trying to remember which of the manufacturers. I know I don't even know. Like if I'm looking right now, I haven't been in the market for a car, so I'm not even sure which ones I'm going to be looking at for CarPlay.
I'm pretty sure Rivian does not support CarPlay, and nor does Tesla. But those are the two, like, obviously big EV makers. I forget what's the other big EV? Is it Polestar? Is that, it just came to me? I don't know. I forget if there's like a third. But yeah, other than that, I don't know. It's not enough of a, I mean, it's like the car has to do a lot of other things besides like be my entertainment system or show my messages. Like, it seems like those things are more important than, the interface or whatever. But
so Sam, because you're a fancy pants, and this has nothing to do with, well, it does have something to do with tech. You probably have some sort of a Tesla charging wall, something really fancy like that. But have you looked at that charging unit that Ubiquiti makes, and have you been curious about that at all?
Oh yeah,
I haven't actually. I mean, now I'm curious about it, but I haven't looked at it. No.
Yeah, you just plug your Tesla in by PoE, and it just
just use Cat 6 connected in.
Yeah.
No, the town actually, I got a free charger for the house. The town had a program to incentivize us to get chargers, because also they borrow some of the electricity we make. So, because I have solar. So basically, like, they said, we'll give you a free charger if every once in a while we can use some of the power that you create. And I get some money back from it too. So it actually works out well for me.
I think
Nice.
also there's a way that your car can power your house. I mean, I'm
Some
not even
cars.
being silly. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
when
not
power
mine.
goes out, your car, like if it has a big battery bank, it can actually like reverse, charge the rest of your equipment in the home. So
Yeah, the
that to me is
Cybertruck
very
does
interesting.
that.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Roy in our chat brought up, remember hearing about this, that GMC moved away from CarPlay. But I wonder, if they're going to walk that back, because I think there was a lot of pushback that they got from that. And that story broke probably about 8 or 10 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys heard anything about that GMC and a CarPlay?
Nothing recent. I'm not in the market either for new vehicle as of right now. Although sometimes having just the van is a little bit of a constraint for us. Like when Ashley drives it to work, I have no vehicle, and it's a lot to drive a van like to go get
Yeah.
groceries sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think if I when I start looking for a vehicle, if and when I would definitely that would factor in. I'd be paying a lot closer attention to this news. But what influence do we have? I mean, pushback. I guess the thing is, iPhone users, it's a good market, right, for a car maker. So, to your point, maybe they do kind of take that under advisement when people start to complain in the news that, they're not supporting it.
I'm still waiting for the Apple car.
Yeah, keep waiting. Yeah.
Just for clarity's sake, Joe, when you say the van, you're not talking about the motorhome. You have like a mystery van like Scooby-Doo?
No, I have a Sprinter van. That's the RV. So it was, upfitted by an RV manufacturer to be a camper van, but it's a Mercedes Sprinter, and so that is our daily driver. It doesn't have, it's not what you call a Class C motorhome, like where you take a van essentially shell, and then build out from there or build up or back from there. It's literally just a self-contained van, so the RV is inside the van only. So it takes up as much space as a very large like FedEx delivery van type thing. Which makes it, it's a little big to drive around some small residential streets, and occasionally there's a parking lot where it's just too small to find a good suitable parking space. But for the most part, we get around with it, and it is our everyday vehicle. So
now, is that what we saw in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a Sprinter.
Phoenix.
I thought,
Vegas? It wasn't Vegas.
No, it was
then.
Phoenix, I think.
Phoenix.
That was when I
Same
first got
thing.
it. Yeah, that's the van. Yeah, that's
Las
the RV.
Phoenix.
Las Vegas.
Phoenix.
Because somehow I was thinking that it was some sort of an Airstream kind of silvery kind of thing.
It's white. It's a big white van, some silver accents.
Silver,
on it.
white, whatever it
I
takes.
remember it. You don't remember this at all, huh, Jerry?
Well, I remember seeing it. I thought it was some sort of an Airstream. Okay.
I like those Airstreams.
Similar. Yeah. Not like the big silver. Yeah, those iconic ones. No, Airstream does make van, like just a van, basically. They upfit vans to be an RV as well, and it's under the Airstream brand. But no, it's not like the old classic, rounded sort of bulbal space age looking Airstream. It's not that.
Thank you for listening to This Week in RV. We'd like to thank our sponsors.
Airstream, I guess. It's Mercedes.
I sent you guys a link, or at least I sent Joe a link because he's in the RV world. But I stumbled on this thing on YouTube where people for these motorhomes, these high-end motorhomes, and one of them is a Tiffin. Is that the name of the company, Joe? The manufacturing company?
That's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, like they pay upwards of $1 million, like 800,000 and higher for these full-on rigs. And these people
they're
were
like buses. They're like musician tour buses or something.
Yeah,
those massive. Yeah.
Like if you were Jimmy Buffett and you were still alive, you'd be in this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also to make it somewhat tech related, or at least like service industry related, RVs are not made very well, and they're not like, the service around them is not very good quality, and components fail. I mean, you have the, like the one you linked me to is like $800,000, RV. I mean, what you'll find in those are just like very cheap commodity components in a lot of cases. Like the water pump is this, $100 like water pump, it's like you can't spring for like the really good water pump that's not going to fail. You get the one that's like, it runs for a little while, it eventually dies, and then you have to hire them to fix it. And they're like, okay, great. Can you come in 6 weeks? It's like, I live in this thing, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
it's amazing that they get away with that kind of thing. And
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and that
sad.
was the takeaway from the video, that these people had purchased, for over $800,000, this motorhome that had all kinds of flaws to it, structural flaws, cracking, all kinds of crazy stuff, and they spent months at the dealership. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's a way of life, I guess. It's just absurd. I just think if I don't know, maybe they prey upon the fact that it's an older demographic and these people are a little bit more malleable. Like by the time most people, you're old enough to, like, let's say you could afford something like that. You're past retire, or you're in retirement age, and maybe these people are more of a pushover. I don't know, but it's crazy stuff.
It really is. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
yeah. Speaking of, so
just broke up to me
just
for a
back
second.
from, oh, just back from my van life from the summer. I realized as I was away, I was missing a lot of this news that broke about Sequoia, and um, what was originally a weekly permission prompt for screenshots and screen recording is now, I guess, a monthly permission prompt. Is that where we've landed? And I was thinking, like, does this affect even Apple Remote Desktop, or is it only third parties? Does it depend on if the third party software is using like the current API, or is like using the outdated API? I'm just wondering where we're going to land with this. I don't know if have you guys seen this buzz around this issue with repeated permissions prompts.
Well, I think it was 9 to 5 Mac where I'm looking at it now again as well, that they changed that cadence, but I don't know the answer to the Apple Remote Desktop portion of the question though, Joe.
Yeah, I'm curious
Like
about
if it's
that.
going to
Affect live desktop, for example, or an Adigy, or you've got the Mr. Apple banner here, Sam, on
oh no,
from Thanks
terrible,
to
because
Jared.
whenever that comes up, I don't have the answer. So
Right.
it's
That's
the
right.
worst.
Yeah.
It's like a curse on me
That's
whenever it
the
comes
irony
up.
of the thing. Yeah. Well, and it reminded me of Jason Snell's article a while back in Six Colors about Apple's, permissions features are out of balance, was what he was saying. And we've been seeing this on, it's not that much better, I mean, there's just so many little prompts and things where when you upgrade from an older macOS version, suddenly you're inundated with like a series of pop-ups stacking on top of each other. And, it's supposed to be like, part of me is cynically thinks it's like Apple saying, hey, you agreed, you can't blame us. Like, you approved that app, because you had to approve the app. We force you to. But it's not a good experience for people to have to go through that. And that when they see, the third one of those, they're not reading it. They're just like, click, 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 get rid of this thing. I don't care. I don't care. And so it's really not having the actual, supposedly intended purpose of getting somebody's approval that some serious thing is happening, like this thing is listening, or this thing's watching, or, this thing can read every file on your disk, or whatever it is. So I agree that this is better than not having those controls, especially in the modern era where you could just, download an app and have it. You don't want it to have full access to, certainly read and write system level things, or even read and write all your data. But there's got to be a better way, right? A better system of prompting and a more sensible way of, when to ask and all that. Yeah.
I think similarly though, there's going to be an MDM functionality there. So I think in a business sense, like I was looking at the Apple's developer page for that, like it looks like there'll be a key that we can set and toggle to like a Boolean on off basically. Mm-hmm. So at least if you're in a business environment, it should be okay,
okay.
But how many times have you remoted into a client computer that has used MDM, or that you've enrolled them with MDM, and you go into privacy and security and all the functions are turned off, even like ones that they use every day, like Zoom, like
right.
The accessibility or full disk access for some Microsoft product, or Google Updater, and all these things, just as a rule of thumb, for most of these people should be on, and it really impedes the performance of their computer because they're wondering like why Google isn't working right, and it's, well, Google fixed that in an update, but you've got the update slider slid off and through no fault of their own. I mean, it's really frustrating. I mean, I very frequently, that's one of the first things I do is when I remote into a client computer, I'll go into privacy and security and I'll just review all the things that should be turned on by default.
So are you saying, you said even with MDM, are you saying even when enabled via MDM? Or are you saying like even though they have MDM, those things are not?
Yes, even though they have
Yeah.
MDM, those things are not on by default.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And I'm not saying, oh, they should be, but there should
Yeah.
be a way for us to say, like, yes, we want this person to, whatever Zoom is asking for. Yes, we want them to have that Zoom functionality. There's no
It
way for us
depends
to control.
on. It depends.
You,
Like for example, with Backblaze, I'll do full disk access through MDM. Because I can
Mhm.
just easily. I created a profile using Adigy, and I push that out to the
Sure.
clients where they're using Backblaze. But yeah, Zoom you can't allow screen recording, right? I
well,
mean, I think
that big
I feel
one
like
is the
Sam wants to
privacy
push
that.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but that's the privacy piece. Like
Right.
Apple doesn't want an IT administrator to be able to enable someone's
Yeah.
camera and microphone. That
That's
makes
right.
total sense to me.
I agree with that, even though
In
it's a
in
limitation.
theory, it
Can I
does.
put my
Yes.
Mr.
Yeah.
Apple badge here, please? Because I feel like I'm
In
getting into it now.
in a court of law, that makes
There you go.
perfect sense,
Yeah.
Mr. Apple. But for when I'm dealing with Mr. Customer, they're wondering why they're having problems, and that's why they're reaching out to me. And it's because a lot of these privacy functions are not enabled.
Can I also make also just one other thing, because I've seen this out in the field a lot. Like if you do turn that on via MDM, if you do enable some of those things, not camera and microphone, of course, they don't show up in the privacy and settings area. So even if you turn on, let's say, accessibility for Zoom,
Mhm.
it will not actually show as enabled in privacy and security, which throws
Interesting.
people off a lot.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So
Which
just,
shouldn't it though? Like, I mean, speaking philosophically, I
yeah,
mean,
philosophically,
because
sure.
right, because like, shouldn't the customer, the user of the computer, be able to go at a glance and see what has access? I mean, they can if they go into profiles and they review like and understand how to interpret that stuff. But wouldn't Apple want them to have a very clear understanding of like which things we've granted full disk access to, for example, or
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not defending the practice. So
yeah,
I think it
yeah,
might be a bug, like basically where
okay,
it's just not properly doing it. I don't think it's on purpose. So like sometimes I have to go into the profiles pane and see, is this setting on? Did I actually do my job? Is it getting there? But it doesn't actually show to the end user or to myself if I'm looking at it. So it can be very confusing.
yeah. That's actually Roy actually pointed out that there is a bug where the toggles show off, but the feature is enabled. That's even worse.
Yeah.
It's like you think that it's
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
but it's not. Yeah. Yeah, and Benjamin Morales says that it sounds like you need Adi's MDM watchdog, Jerry, if it's not getting the profile, because it may be that if you have a profile that enables that, and it just didn't push out. I mean, I haven't had that. I agree that MDM Watchdog is a fantastic feature from Adigy, and it completely bridged the gap for me, like where MDM was just unreliable based on Apple's own bugs, and Adigy really fixed that with that MDM Watchdog feature. Because I had that same issue where I'm like, I don't know, my configuration seems right, it's not working the way I expect it to. I don't know what's going on. Like, am I stupid? Like, I feel like I did this right, but it's just not. And it turns out, yeah, MDM was like hung, and it's just
Mhm.
therefore not getting any of the profiles to prove that stuff. So that's a great point. I wonder if that's related in some cases, but the one like Microsoft Word I've seen where, when you open it up and it asks you like, please select the dictionary file, and the client will
Yeah.
call me and be like, why, what do I have to do? I'm like, just click OK, basically. Like, it's already selected, it's already got the dialogue up. You're like, but why does the user have to do that? Well, you can thank Apple for that, because they're trying to prevent, Microsoft Word from having a vulnerability that gets exploited that can then, ransomware all your files or something. Like, but okay, but this is like the Microsoft Word owned dictionary file or something. Like, why does that require, but if you had full disk access pushed out to allow Microsoft Word to just have access, you wouldn't be seeing that. So I see some examples there like you're describing. I don't know. I think there's a better balance for this, because I think it's kind of a coordination thing. It's like you upgrade a machine and you get inundated with the series of stacked dialog boxes, and again the user gets just dialogue fatigue, and they're not going to read each one, and they're not going to understand what each one says and whether they should do it, and it's just going to be a boy who cried wolf situation where they don't now when there is a prompt like hackersoft.com wants to read all your data. They're just like, okay, just get out of my way,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so
But
that's not a good thing. Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that you bring up a great point too. Like I've been trying to battle that where I've been setting up, like, you know, how I've talked in the past as well about trying to set up automations for the new enrollment of a Mac and get all the apps installed. And there's some cool tools out there for that. There's also like some MDM profiles to, like, you know, basically pre-approve background items and notifications and all that stuff that I've been trying to get better at so that it limits exactly what you're talking about, Joe. Because I
Yeah.
agree. The user will get total fatigue and just be like, "Well, okay, fine, allow. Like, who gives a crap?" And that's a bad thing that's going to happen there. So it is a challenge. It is truly a challenge to get all that stuff going. But if you get it good in one instance, hopefully you can recreate it elsewhere.
Right. Which is the beauty of, again, like a system like AdagU, where it's
Yeah.
multi-tenant. You can like have that template of like, okay, I've got this dialed in, and now I'm going to use this for all these different clients,
Yeah.
But I would like to see Apple solve some of this, like have a better interface, like don't stack up a series of boxes, like recap it. Like the following things are asking for full disk access, on off each case, and then save. Are you sure you want to save that? Yes. Okay, done.
Maybe like a little fish that follows them along or something.
Drag the little fish. Exactly. Take a page out of Mike Bombick's playbook. Precisely.
I love that.
Yeah, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe this is an overreaction, but it almost seems like it's just too much. They just keep on piling more stuff under privacy and security.
Yeah.
And like you said, Joe, they waved the flag of, hey, we asked you, and this is why we have to have all this stuff here. So,
right.
And you're right. A lot of users don't give a crap.
Right.
They just want to use the tool.
See, that's an interesting point too, because there's a difference between like a power user, and I forget if it was John Gruber who made this point, versus a like very rudimentary user. Like, the Nana computers out there are like, they should be locked down, and they should ask weekly, do you really want hacker.com, hacker person, website to have access to continue to watch your screen every moment of the day? They're watching you right now. Is that okay? And like, maybe, and make it clear enough, and they'll be like, no. Or like Apple could just we suggest you click no unless you're connected with your professional right now or something, whereas like to your point about MDM, Sam, maybe like that implies that these are power users who shouldn't have to jump through the same kinds of hoops. And hopefully they're addressing like at least the screen recording, repeating permission in the case of, MDM users. But what about somebody who's kind of in the middle there, where it's like they're, a one-off professional, they're not managed by anybody, they're kind of flying solo, they're doing their own support, and maybe they can opt into like, don't ask me again, or, ask me again in 6 months or whatever. I don't know. It should be some maybe adjustments to that instead of just
Agreed.
all or nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or for privacy and security, and again, this would never happen, but something where it's like a best practice, like suggested mode. And for the basic user, they do that, and some things are already auto-enabled. And then if in fact you want to get more granular and dial it in, there's an advanced mode. So you could turn on advanced mode, and then you can go in there and tweak all the knobs and flip all the toggles that you need to. But there's sort of like a best practice setting for the standard user.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Some kind of blueprint even on the MDM side for like power standard and just like.
Now we're talking. Now we got something here.
As a side note, I think Kanji does something like that, but I'm not 100% sure, like some kind of blueprints for users. But yeah, I agree. I think there's got to be something or I also like the interface that maybe you were talking about, Joe, where it's like instead of just those like 30 notifications upper right, maybe like a window in the middle of the screen that says these apps would like to do this. Would you like to, a little bit cleaner of an interface?
Cleaner. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. With a summary and, and okay, it takes a little effort from Apple because, the app opens and that's when you get the prompt. Okay. I understand like how that technically works. And, when you have like 10 apps open at login because they were left open before the upgrade, or you have them configured to open at login, now you just get a stack of individual prompts. Like, okay, they should just pause, like let the app open. You don't give it permission yet, but you just wait and see if you have like, maybe there's like an initial window where nothing's allowed and it's waiting for a minute until everything finishes opening. And then it just summarizes what those requests are. That's what I want to see. And it's cleaner looking, very, much clearer interface. Yeah, I think the issue with, I don't know, I guess with MDM, that's one factor. With power users, that's another factor. There's a balance there that they're not hitting. I think I just want to see them work a little bit better on that.
There's a vision that's not happening. It's like it's more micro managed, these
Yeah.
things, and there's nobody who's like standing back and saying,
Yeah.
what's our vision for this? It's like,
Right.
where's my human interface guidelines
Right.
for this? You guys got to like, they're probably not going to fix it, but it's gone from something that we've lived with for years and years and years, and it wasn't perfect, but it was manageable. And now we've
Right.
got something that it's like all these nested settings, and it's like, oh, okay, this is why, because we needed to go into this subheading and we needed to enable this,
Right.
or it was turned on, but now we have to turn it off and turn it on to make it work properly.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be that you'd unlock and then you'd check a box. Now you flip a switch and then you put in your password. It's like, okay, so we're just like, it's just this moving target.
Like, what password did they?
Interfaces.
Yeah. How many times?
Right.
Yeah. What password did I put in there? My iCloud
Right.
password?
Right.
No.
I don't have an iCloud password. I love answers like that.
Yeah.
I don't have an iCloud.
What is my iCloud password? I don't have one.
I don't
I
have a
just use my
password for my
finger.
email. Yeah. It sounds silly right now, but in the future, like there'll be pass keys and like, well, maybe you really won't have a password for certain things. You'll have a fingerprint or a biometric thing. But the other thing I wanted to say is like, okay, Backblaze, their whole business is having access to all of your data. Like that's every single person who installs Backblaze needs to give it full disk access. And and Apple makes Backblaze jump through the hoop of, same thing as Mike Bombay, drag the little fish, or we're gonna open up this window and we're gonna open up this window, and you got to drag this thing over here. Like people are like,
that's a great point.
What? It's like, make an exception. Backblaze has their software is signed. Okay, so we know that you're signing this particular app. Maybe go one step further and say, like, if it's signed by Backblaze and it matches this application identity or whatever, it's an exception that's automatic, that's granted to Backblaze. Even though it's not distributed through the Mac App Store, we can still do that because the software is signed. And okay, I mean, does that mean that now Apple, Backblaze is a bigger target for a malware vendor, a malware, author to like kind of target Backblaze because they have that exception already? Maybe there's some reason they don't want to incentivize people to, exploit Backblaze. But I mean, Apple could easily revoke that if there is a malware,
or just, I mean, just jumping on your idea, Joe, or at least something where it happens in the same visual window. Like, yeah, we're going to have to do this. It's going to open, I don't know, like show you something where you do have to use Touch ID or something. It is a secondary action, but if it's right there for you, it's a little bit easier than like go here and click on this button and then putting your password.
Right.
So,
I agree. It's an interface thing too, but then again, what's the point? Like, if I don't know, maybe it's as part of the licensing step or just like the first initial step of the installation. It would be like, we're going to install the software and it's going to have access to your whole disk. Is that okay? Right at the very beginning, like to your point, it's just a better interface.
I got you.
Yeah, and Ben's asking, are we talking about MDM profile not working? That, I think that was a side point that Jerry made earlier, where there may be exceptions where that doesn't work. That absolutely works for me. Like when I have even a residential client that's managed in my MDM, if they say, hey, I installed Backblaze on your recommendation and I don't know if it's working, and I get the alert in Watchman that says it doesn't have full disk access, I can just click a button and deploy the profile, and they're solved. That works well for me. I'm talking more about the case where it's the one-off client who's not managed, not hiring someone for their support, and they just go and install Backblaze, maybe on my recommendation, maybe just generically. They have to jump through a hoop that just seems to me like not a great design for them. And I would just like to see it be more clear about what's happening. And to me, it's never sat with me well to go to system settings, find a preference, find a sub panel of that preference, flip a switch, check a box, whatever the interface wants you to do, and then put in your password. Like, you shouldn't have to know to go and do that. It should just, like Sam was saying, it should just ask you in some clean way where, like, maybe the exception that Apple grants Backblaze is that they're allowed to ask and they're allowed to give you a checkbox, right there in the installer. you know, if they don't want to just give them a blanket exception.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's MDM, but I think, like, to your point, like a lot of home users might use Backblaze. So
Right.
in an MDM world, perfect. Do it, done. User never sees anything. And like that, you know, Nana needs to install Backblaze. She's going to have a hard time doing it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I just, in general, this whole interface needs a lot of work. I hope it happens in, you know, whatever's after Sequoia, because it doesn't seem like it's happening during Sequoia. In fact, it's getting worse before it gets better with the, you know, third-party screen recording, needing regular permissions. It just seems like, yeah, that needs help. So
I think it's Papoose Lake is the new one, the alpha.
Okay.
Square.
Is that in California?
No, it's in Nevada. But
that's not going to work then.
No, I like the name though.
Yeah.
Papoose
Maybe Apple's
Lake.
moving their headquarters. That's the
Papoose Lake. Wow, reminds me of my favorite food, pupusas.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Salvadorian. Huh? No. Papusa. My family background is Salvadorian. They're just cornmeal, like with stuffing inside of them. They're really good.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Kind of like an arepa,
They're amazing.
but like
a little thinner, and arepas, like usually the ones I see are a little bit thicker.
Yes,
and they're kind of stuffed from the side. I don't know how we got into this conversation.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry now, man. We got some good arepas.
My stomach's growling as I'm talking about this. I'm gonna have to order some.
So I've been listening to the last couple of shows, and I needed to bring this up to you because I'm kind of at a loss at this point. I really haven't heard any I'd like to get some serious whining again about 1Password. Got anything for us, Sam?
Whining?
I got a banner for this, Jerry.
Yeah.
I got a banner for you.
Well, that's my personal whining is 1Password for the people that are just listening and not watching the YouTube. Yeah, I whine about 1Password a lot. But I mean, I have legitimate issues, and no, you guys are, you know, instead of offering any advice, Jerry's just like, wah, like you're
Jerry sends the crying baby meme, you know, and all this stuff. I have to say it's better for me lately. Sam, has it improved at all for you? Because I go like days now without having to 1Password had an issue, reload 1Password, you know, that where the extension crashes. Much better now.
Yes, that's been better. But what is with my Safari extension not synchronizing with my 1Password app changes? Like I get prompted for an update to change my password. I change it in the app, and then for days, unless I quit and reopen Safari, that password is the old one and doesn't sync back. I thought that's automatic.
Jerry, you brought this on yourself, by the way. If in case you're getting, annoyed with Sam,
I'm happy.
Come on.
I'm happy. I'm enjoying
being riled up. All you had to say was 1Password.
Why me? Why me? Right?
I have to say it is better, and I still have. It's not as I remember when it worked more reliably, and I miss those days. Still, even though it is better, it's not the way it once was. So
Ben Morales says, "Find a new girlfriend, Sam."
Yeah.
Bitwarden.
Yeah, I haven't tried Bitwarden, but that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like
that.
Pass?
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. I mean, you just never know. You're going to be, out of the frying pan and into the fire in some cases, right?
Well, Bitwarden, you could self-host, I believe, right? You can buy the self-hosting package, I think.
I haven't checked it out. I do have something completely unrelated to 1Password, though. I was just thinking about this the other day. So lately, I get AARP newsletters now. Jerry, you know what that's like. So they come my way. And
I write articles for them. What are you talking about? Seniors getting hacked.
But it never says Jerry Zigman of Command Control Power. It just says of Mac.
No.
MacWorks,
MacWorks.
Yeah. After all these years, Joe, we still can't get him to do it.
I know.
But so we were out at the beach actually, on with my brother-in-law and some people and stuff like that. We're out on tubes, and one person had a one of those sealed bags for your iPhone, so you can use it in the water and things like that, and not get it damaged. And he fell off his tube in the water, and the iPhone just sank, just went right down into the water. So, we're all thinking of all these different things. I'm like, it's kind of a shallow area. It wasn't too deep. So I was like, let's sign into your iCloud account and let's see if we can do Find My from there and see if we can hear it or see it light up under the water. And everything. And then as luck would have it, when we signed into his iCloud account, it said it had not checked in since yesterday morning, like the day before. I'm like, how can that even be?
Right.
I'm like, there's nothing wrong. You've been using your phone. It's active. You've like, I don't understand how it couldn't have seen your location for an entire 24 hours.
Right.
So that kind of sucked. Huh?
Well, he might have been visiting, right? And he wasn't home, so it wasn't on the known Wi-Fi network. So cellular was turned off.
Yeah, no, cellular was on. He was like talking with his friends, like being like, "Look at me, I'm on the water." And then 2 minutes.
Yeah, but not iCloud syncing, right? You could turn off iCloud syncing.
Find My should definitely work. You know.
Well, how do you know he had Find My enabled?
Because that's what I did. I signed into it. Were you not paying attention to my story, Jerry?
I just heard that it sunk.
Yeah. So
I
anyway,
was checking my email.
So this goes back to this story. Just let me preface this, does not have a happy ending, but it goes back to an AARP newsletter I got, and it was like 10 things you didn't know your iPhone could do. So I'm like, oh wait a second,
swim.
Yeah. So I looked, and one of them was it, and I can never say this word correctly, but a magnetometer or magnetometer or whatever. So it can find, like, it can use the tool inside the iPhone to find basically metal, and it's built into the iPhone. You can just use an app that you can download to find, and you can use that to find another iPhone. So we were under the water with a case on a phone, seeing if it would scan close enough, but you had to be really close. So it was like near impossible to do. But I thought I was the whole time I'm like in the water, I'm like, I'm going to have a great story for the show. Yeah. I can't believe it. And we never found it. And we made fun of him, obviously, for the rest of the day. But
so it's supposed to work as a metal detector? I didn't.
Yeah. So basically, So my phone's being used as my camera right now, but you can download one of the free apps that can leverage that function of the phone, and you'll see it, like, it can dial up and find metallic objects.
That's very interesting.
It's not terribly deep, so it's not like you can walk around the beach and find like gold or anything. I thought that was interesting, and thanks to AARP for that.
And you were in Long Island Sound, so the water is murky at best, right? If not like impossible to see. So it's not like you guys could have put on goggles and really.
We tried, but it was a miserable effort.
Yeah.
Well, there is a series of videos that occasionally will pop up in my YouTube feed of magnet fishing. So this is like where people go to like a bridge that's highly trafficked, and people taking photos. Whoops, I dropped my phone, or maybe somebody commits a crime and like dumps the weapon somewhere, that kind of thing. So they pull up all kinds of stuff. You get a very powerful magnet on the end of a fishing line, or probably rope would be better. And then just, like drag it around where you are and just lift it up. I mean, that should work to pick up an iPhone, I would think. So maybe
let's
you go
magnet
back with,
fishing, guys.
Yeah. Especially if it's in a waterproof case, right? It's probably still good down there.
I'm sure it's still alive, but the battery, I'm sure, died, but you can still find it with the magnet.
Well, this is probably a good opportunity. I'm not a member of the AARP, but I still have some, useful tips sometimes. This happens occasionally where a client doesn't have Find My iPhone turned on, which is like, why don't you have that turned on?
Right.
Or they just don't use location services at all, like on a system level. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, well, I don't want to, Apple, da-da-da. I'm like, Apple, like, just stop. I don't even want to explain like why that's a bad, like thinking anymore, because the people that like have that impression are just not being targeted by like a, state sponsored like malware, like whatever. It's just not like, it doesn't apply to you. Don't worry about it. But, okay, turn on location services for sure. Turn on Find My, obviously. And then in the iCloud settings, or in the Apple ID settings under Find My, you can tap on Find My iPhone or whatever the device is. And obviously, like, that should be turned on. But then also Find My network should be turned on, because that will allow, like, even if your phone is offline, and, I think to some degree after the battery has died, or definitely if it's powered off, it can still be located by other iOS devices that are just passing through. So if a thief, takes your phone and, and like turns off, I think if they put it in airplane mode, I guess it still needs Bluetooth for this to work. But like your phone doesn't have to actually be online. Maybe cellular's turned off, but everything else is on. Their phone, or like other passerby's phone, will report your phone's location to Apple. using obviously whatever their fancy security is. So it's not like, Sam is over here. It's like just this generic iPhone identifier is over here. And if Sam goes to look for his phone, Find My knows where it is, or and then lastly, the send last location obviously should be turned on as well. So if your battery does die, before it dies, it reports its location. I still can't understand the edge case that you experienced where like he has Find My turned on, but it doesn't know the location of when it dropped. Right?
I could not explain that. And I'm doing it on my phone, of course. I'm signed in and trying to look, and it said like last checked in the morning before. I'm like, I don't even understand how that's possible. So I don't know, but we had no luck anyway. But what was I going to say? Oh, by the way, Joe, just in case you were wondering, there is no minimum age requirement to join AARP, contrary to popular belief.
Nothing wrong with AARP.
So you can get some nice discounts. And for the record, I'm not 50 yet, so I'm not there. But
what discounts do you get? Because I just refuse to look at any of those materials. Seriously,
it's like it's like basic, like everyday, like dining discounts and stuff like that. I think you might have to go before 4 though, Jerry, to get.
How about like my dentures? Would I get a discount on my dentures?
Probably. Well, I'll look it up for you on my fancy AARP account. It's like $16 for the year or something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I complain about things a lot of times, and I never come up with solutions. But on a previous show, I had been mentioning and bemoaning the fact that with the current version of the new operating system, that Apple Mail hasn't gotten any better, and you can't create tags. There's something that I actually deployed some time ago, and I really never used it. And I was reading, one of the things that I read was, you can take a piece of mail and you could drag it into Notes with boy, why do I have trouble remembering? This is the old age. The beta, the new Apple operating system, Sequoia.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So one of the things is you could drag an email into the calendar app, and it'll link to the email. It's not working. I mean, I don't know what. Or you could drag the email into Notes. That does work, but there's a very unique Apple script which you can deploy in combination with Text Expander. And you can actually create a unique URL over very much the way, I don't know if anybody listening has used OmniSync through the years, but you could create URLs for your emails in OmniSync. Well, this free Apple script can do that for you. And this was talked about many, many years ago by actually David Sparks on his Mac Sparky blog back in 2019. Well, the good news is this still works. And you could use it yourself. So you simply highlight a message, and then what you do is through a Text Expander snippet, you go into any application, whether it's Apple Notes or on a calendar, and it creates a unique URL to that email and calls it right up. So it's really terrific, and we'll put that in the show notes.
Will we?
Okay. We will indeed. Yes.
Nice, Jerry. That's cool.
It's a great tip.
What was the OS, Jerry? Do you remember?
Touche.
OS Papoose Lake, right?
Papoose Lake, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a great tip because you'll see that come up automatically. Like Mail is absolutely capable of doing that, because if you, for example, add a flight to your calendar that came in through email, it's, it has the convenient show in Mail link, and it links you right to the email message. Like, why don't they give us this feature built in to say, link to a message? As a little tip on top of a tip, you can do this in a lot of apps where you use the share sheet, so you can go to share, and then sometimes the app will have a like copy link function essentially. And that just works on your own system. If you're already in the app, typically it's not like a generic public link or anything like that, but you can sometimes get that. Like I use, things for my to-do list, and I use, day one for journaling and things like that. And you can take an entry in day one or take an item, task in things, and you can, right click, share, and then in share, you go to copy link, and then you can copy and paste it into Notes, like your example, or other places. So that's pretty cool. So that Text Expander can actually do that. I imagine it must need like an Apple script or something as well.
The full directions are in this post from David Sparks, but it still works in Sequoia. So that's a great
Nice.
great thing to continue to use forward. And I've had no issues with Sequoia. I'm running the Apple AI version of Sequoia, both on my phone and on my Mac. And there's been no showstoppers. Everything just works. I saw a recent post. I wish this happened to me, but somebody was remarking about a weird AI issue that they had. And somebody chimed in on this group forum post and they said, yeah, I was reading that. And I just kept on reading it as Weird Al instead of Weird AI.
Weird AI.
And
Nice.
it was terrific. I had a really good laugh that,
Nice.
just one little font character off.
Right. It does look like, I think that's why that company that did the AI pin, wasn't it like, was it lowercase? I forget. Because the way it does look like Al, like capital A and like, lowercase.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard any skepticism about AI? I feel like we need to get ready for the like the vague woo woo like concern about AI. Like I had somebody say, I need to buy a new Mac. This was like just a friend, not a client or anything. And they said, I said, well, anything you get in the Apple store, any MacBook Air, they wanted a desktop, so Mac Mini, just even the current Mac Mini before the new one comes out, it's fantastic. It'd be a massive upgrade to your 10-year-old Mac Mini, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, actually, I want to get an old one before the new ones come out. And I said, why? And they said, well, I want to get ahead of this AI thing. And I said, well, I mean, the current ones will do AI just great. Any Apple Silicon is going to be fantastic for that on a Mac. But the new ones will be even faster. It's like your choice, current model or the next one. And they said, no, I want to get ahead of this AI release that Apple's doing because I don't want it. And I was like,
They don't want the
Man,
AI version of the Mac.
yes.
Yeah, I wrote that article for the ARP magazine, by the way.
That's where they're getting their bad info.
Yeah,
Okay.
Make sure you buy an older Mac because you don't want the AI version because it's going to steal your stuff.
Well, for this, we can credit Jerry Zigman of MacWorks, not Command
Yeah,
Control
yeah,
Tower, because I don't want to be associated with that kind of advice. But yeah, I had to explain. It's a little awkward too, like trying to tell somebody like you totally have the wrong understanding. Like, first of all the AI out there, like you can trust Apple if you can trust anybody, and the way they've implemented is like they're doing most, any processing they can do, they're doing it on the device. If they can't do it on the device, they're doing it in the Apple, AI private cloud. Like, so it's under their control. And if it's better handled by some third-party large language model like ChatGPT or whatever it is, they're going to ask you, probably to an annoying degree every time, if you really want them to send that out and hand off to ChatGPT. And by the way, you can turn it all off. So it's like, what are you afraid of? Okay, maybe like in the future it'll all be like, forced on you. I don't think so. But that's also an OS level thing, so just don't upgrade. I don't know. It's just vague concerns, People are like worried about AI robot overlords or something. So
yeah, there's going to be more.
Instead of iOS, they could download the imbecile OS and put that on their computer.
Maybe I should have just said that, to this friend. Yeah.
That's what the I stands for.
But I mean, there are legitimate concerns about AI, but like this is not that. Like that's
you could turn it off. On your Mac
AI.
and on your phone.
Right.
Yeah.
There's an on-off switch.
Right.
So
of course. Yeah.
Nothing to be scared of, people. Move on.
Yeah. Right.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. Don't worry about Weird Al. It's fine. It's fine.
So, well, I look forward to your next ARP article, Jerry. Let me know.
Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll subscribe for this quality content you're writing about AI.
10 things I didn't know my iPhone did. This is amazing.
That's pretty cool, though. Yeah.
Access it like a flashlight. I think that was number one. I was like, I knew that.
Flashlight, I knew. Yeah. Oh man. Well, good luck out there, everybody, navigating this weird new Al world we're in, and good luck navigating these conversations with your clients and all. And thank you for listening to our humble little podcast here. We really appreciate your listening, and we appreciate your support to our patrons out there. So join us at commandcontrolpower.com, sign up for our newsletter, and pledge on Patreon if you can spare a little bit for us. We really appreciate every little bit you can help. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the year.